So first, let's talk about the piano tone. This is a SuperNATURAL piano engine. It's got 256 notes of polyphony. They don't specify, but I'm assuming this has the BMC chip driving all of this. And just like every other Roland piano, it tends to tonally skew towards what you would expect out of, say, a NY Steinway. That is in fact the piano they use to sample the core of the SuperNATURAL engine. So that piano tone is coming to you from two downward facing speakers. They're 11 watts apiece. So on paper, this sounds a little underpowered for something that's kind of emulating a grand piano experience, or at least it's trying to give you that sort of grandiose, impression of the sound. There's one tone port inside the piano that looks like an upward facing speaker. It is in fact not an upward facing speaker. It's basically just a tone port to allow some of that ambient sound being generated off the back of the speaker cones to filter on up. There's also a little bit of natural resonance occurring with the kind of the wood veneer, or the piece of wood there that's simulating where the soundboard would be. Not a ton. You tend to notice a little bit more just in the very lower octave. And that tone port has a fairly subtle effect through most of the lower and mid. I do actually tend to hear quite a bit of the highs coming through that tone port. I kind of had my ear over and was listening to what was actually making it through. So people who are into acoustic science could maybe explain to me why I was getting more of the treble through there versus not, wavelength per se, and I don't know, the dimensions of the chamber inside. Who knows? Anyway, the actual effect of playing this instrument is not underwhelming at all. I'm really, really impressed with how efficient those speakers are in creating, a genuinely full tone. The fact that it's also very unadorned with any buttons really does give you the sense that you kind of are behind a piano. Now on board there aren't very many sounds to pick from. I think there's just over a dozen, 14, 15 or something like that. There are a few acoustic pianos to choose from, and to select from there you can either use the app or you can use the function key and select through the first 15 keys using both the white and the black keys in ascending order. So to get to our second piano tone, for example, we just press this and then the B flat. Here's the third one. That 1976 suitcase. think for most people, you're going to probably spend your time on your primary piano sound. Sort of an interesting point of trivia, at least the one we opened up out of the box by default came tuned to 442. So it sort of just had a bit of a sharper, well, like literally, but also figuratively, it kind of has this sharper tone to it. Lowered this down to 440 because that's just what my ear is more used to. There's basic ambience control as well as brilliance control. So that pretty much wraps up, you know, our discussion on sound. There's not like a ton going on here, but the overall experience is still pretty satisfying, given that I know for a fact it is not cheap for manufacturers to produce body cabinets or cabinets of any description with a really high quality polished ebony. That adds a considerable amount of manufacturing cost. And then on top of that, you've got the guts of basically about a $2,000 digital piano, you know, inside it. A quick spec review of the Roland GP3 tone engine, being driven by the SuperNATURAL piano engine. That's the sampling version of that engine, a maximum polyphony of 256. Total number of tones of 15, and you're able to edit the brilliance, ambience, and the key touch, of which there are 5 types.